Good morning. Welcome to what, I'm a little biased, but welcome to what I believe will be the best session of the Grad Initiative Symposium. We have some exceptional students with us today, and I'm really excited and privileged to be moderating this session, and really with the folks who I think are the most important part of the student success equation, the students. And so today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take an opportunity to kind of walk through the life cycle of the college experience, the different aspects of the college experience, and ultimately wrap up with each of the students' top 5 things that they want everyone in this room to know about student success. And an important point to note as we kind of kick off this session is that this might be a little different from what Dr. Rennick described yesterday when the students met with Bill Gates and talked about all the amazing things that happen with the interventions going on at Georgia State. You know, we're probably going to highlight some experiences that may not be as pleasant as the ones that were described there. And I think that's really one of the most important things about this discussion, is to really talk about the real experiences, the some good and some not so good, that really can inform us in serving students better. So with that, and without further ado, I'm gonna allow the students to introduce themselves. Hometown, major, where you're from, what your post-grad plans are, and then we'll get right into it. So Eric, do you want to start?
Yes, hello everyone. Good morning, thank you for being here. My name is Eric, or Eric Ignacio Macias Chavez. I'm a senior at San Jose State University studying sociology with a focus on race and ethnicity. I will be graduating this spring. My plans, well, I consider myself a family man. I am a brother and a son, so I hope to, take my education, bring it into my family, and those are the current next steps.
Hello everyone, my name is Farhanda Alizada. I'm originally from Afghanistan, but I moved to the US in 2002. I am a double major in political science and global studies with a minor in film. I focus on foreign policy and human rights. And for the future, I'm hoping to get a master's in either diplomacy or development. Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Kyra Bradley. I attend Sacramento State University. I am a senior graduating in the spring. My post-grad plans is to go to grad school for education leadership to become one of you. And I'm from Los Angeles, California.
Good morning everyone, my name is Jacob Howard. I am studying civil engineering at California State University, Fullerton. Go Titans. My post-grad plans are I want to become a project manager for large-scale projects, and I also want to go into land development. Looking forward to that.
Wonderful. There will be opportunities for Q&A at the end, so just a heads up, if you're thinking of them along the way, just write them down and we'll get to it at the end. So maybe we'll start right at the beginning. With admissions. So if any of you would like to talk about how your experiences was just applying to the Cal State system and just getting to campus.
I had a positive experience with the admission process. I really like how the CSU system, we do it all together. We can pick the different colleges to apply to, and it gets sent out by doing just one application. So that was a very positive experience for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. My direct application was very straightforward compared to the other systems in out of state.
What were some of the factors that went into deciding that you were going to go to a Cal State system? I know that sometimes location matters, proximity to where you live. What are some of the reasons that you all chose to go to a Cal State campus?
I would say that location was key. It's very, Cal State San Marcos is very close to my home, so that's why I decided to go there. And also my siblings attended that university as well, so I had their guidance to help me.
And I know that the majority of you entered right out of high school, but Eric, you're a transfer student. So what was the experience like for you?
Thankfully, it was very easy. Not as much requirements or a lot to do as in high school. Make sure you've taken the exams, make sure you've just been prepared, but rather the transfer process was a couple applications, submit this, and you're in. And so I think it was very easy for me, which I'm very grateful for. But I chose San Jose because it was close to home. I got to live with my family and not pay those crazy Silicon Valley prices.
So you made it to campus, right? You made it through the admissions process. You're on campus. how would you describe your experience with the orientation process, getting signed up for classes, figuring out what your major is going to be? How would you describe kind of the first days on campus?
I would describe my first day on campus and getting registered for everything as kind of like being like herded cattle, as like as far as everyone is like there at the same time and kind of like, okay, this is your major. Okay, check off the box. You guys are doing this courses. Like you guys go into this room and kind of sort everything out. But then at the end of it, you kind of get left with kind of figure things out for yourself.
I had a positive orientation experience, kind of like in the movies when you step on the college campus, you're like, this is my school. When I stepped onto Sac State, I really felt that. Orientation was awesome. We did a couple of chants. We got the school pride up. And then we had a special thing they do for freshman students called Frosh Night. So we actually spent the night in the dorms, the night of orientation. And it was really cool. It was a positive experience. You actually felt like you're in college before you actually got into college.
My orientation in general for the university admissions was okay, but what I really liked was the EOP admissions. For some of you in the audience who don't know what EOP is, it's the Educational Opportunity Program, and it focuses on like minority students and first generation college students and just helps them ease into university a little bit better. And I really liked that orientation compared to the general one that we have in our university.
Eric, I'm probably going to like pick on you a little bit since you're a transfer student and you are representing all transfer students here. I'm just kidding. But interested to know like how your experience may have been different from their experience being a transfer student.
Well, I was already working beforehand. I had plans with my family, our personal goals, you know, and so I had to work on my academic career alongside. I think something that was missing was opportunities or sort of speaking to transfer students as to what you may do in the university. I felt rather than it was just, you know, you're a transfer student, cool, you got 2 more years to go, this is exactly what you have to do, rather than, you know, immerse yourself in the university life, enjoy this new institution, you know, this is compare your education, grow, right? But it was more like, oh, you transferred, this is what you have left, goodbye. And so it was more of a transaction rather than, you know, you've accomplished a new stage in life, grow, learn, this is what you may find different than what you found at the community college. And that's something I think many institutions can improve on.
So, you know, one of the things we talked a lot about yesterday, that one of the speakers that was presenting, he talked about academic advising is this really kind of big piece of the graduation success that they had at Georgia State. How would you describe the advising that you received since you've been a student, and you know, what were the bright spots? Did you feel like maybe there were shortcomings in the advising that you received? How would you describe that?
So coming into Sac State as a freshman, I actually had a peer mentor, which is a program within the Academic Advising Center where our peers advise us for our first year advising. So I think that I had a positive experience. My peer mentor was very well trained on advising, so I never actually went to the Academic Advising Center freshman year. It was all through a peer who was trained by the Academic Advising Center. So I really liked her, really enjoyed her, and she was the reason I became a peer mentor and then continued on helping freshmen get advising. And I really think that was a great way to do it. However, when I did get into my junior year, I did see a little bit of complications where I could have took a couple of classes to fulfill different requirements and double dipped and different things like that. But overall, I'd say dealing with a peer rather than being an 18-year-old talking to an older adult, I was more comfortable getting advising from her and taking advice from her because she was a student that went through it.
I didn't really have a good academic advising experience. When I became a global studies major, I tried to make an appointment with one of the advisors, and then it said that there were no advisors for my major. So I sent like a few emails and I never got a response. Most of my academic advising was with EOP or with my faculty advisors, and they were really helpful and really great. But with the actual university's academic advising, it wasn't beneficial.
Yeah, I'd also agree with that. For me, I kind of had my academic advising. I noticed that it wasn't as fluid as I would like it to be. So I was looking into potentially doing a second major, but it was kind of like a disconnect between departments to where I wasn't exactly sure what steps I should take. And there's also a lot of like prerequisites for courses. So I was kind of left to kind of figure that out, but it was also like a gray area that I was in, like with my own education.
So looking back, I'm thinking of like, we've kind of captured the beginnings of your college experience, kind of reflecting on some of those areas. Would you say that there was something that was the most important part of that experience that you think kind of contributed to success going forward from that point?
Yeah, I think it's connected to the counseling question. Thankfully, we do have very nice counselors. There is a disconnect, as you mentioned, between the transfer ones and the first year ones. I remember being told two different things because they had interpreted how I came in differently. And so they were, I was taking a class that I should have not taken. But interestingly enough, I've also had great counselors. But what I appreciate them is that I can tell them about my personal goals, not just academic goals. And so when we're planning, we're considering that I might have to work 2 jobs. We're considering that I might have to commute. We're considering that I have to take care of my sisters at some point in my life. So instead of them telling me, take all these classes within this 4, 5, 6, 7 hour block and then handle the rest later, I think it's not quite appropriate, but rather considering that, you might have to do this. So it's best if you take this class here. So engaging with my counselors and people who care about me really helped because it allowed me to see my whole life in front of me rather than just the classes and what I was going to be engaging in. So people who are interested in not just academic goals, but family, personal goals, interpersonal goals, etc., I think really goes a long way.
Piggybacking off of that, I think, again, with the peer mentor experience, seeing a peer being involved really clicked to me. I think personally getting involved in college is the way you stay in college. So me being a freshman and seeing a junior talk to me and having the job with the Academic Advisor Center, I was like, okay, this is cool. I want to get involved. I actually want to take my classes seriously. And I think that just getting that peer-on-peer relationship actually helps me stay in school this far. So.
Yeah, I think for like a lot of us, when we go into university and we go into the peer mentoring program or we talk to an academic advisor, it's the first time we're actually actively encouraged to go to university and to be in university. For me, that's how it was with EOP and a few courses that I took with my professors. It was the first time in my life that someone said, hey, you can actually make it in university and make it somewhere in your life. And that was refreshing and really great.
So you all talked about some experiences that, kind of fall outside of the classroom experience. I'm wondering if you might be able to speak to some influential out of the classroom activities that you may have been engaged in that you think helped with that sense of belonging and being on campus. You just kind of captured it perfectly, like being involved is how you stay in college. And well, I'm wondering if you might be able to expand on that a little bit in the different ways that you all have been involved that have been important to your success.
So I came into college with a bunch of friends freshman year. Right now I have like 3 of those friends still in college because the other ones didn't find their place within Sac State. They were doing fine in classes, but they felt like they didn't belong. So when I was a peer mentor, I would always tell my students to get involved. That's the main way you stay in college. Anyone can take classes. Anyone can show up and take classes, but you really find who you are. You find your people once you branch out to clubs or organizations. So I got involved, which I spoke about many times now, with the peer mentor program. But I actually stopped that last year. I'm actually a student success ambassador for the Academic Advisor Center now. And that's really awesome. We're working with a project called Smart Planners. So I helped create the whole project of the student success ambassadors, and we're just putting together a program to help students use Smart Planner and different things like that. So just being helpful, reaching out to students, and helping, just like what we're doing now, helping faculty like get into the minds of students and learn about students even more is basically what I do at my college.
So if you don't mind, I want to follow up on one of the things that you mentioned. You mentioned the friend group that you had that has dwindled. And I'm wondering if you have any observations beyond maybe their lack of getting involved that made them feel like they didn't belong. Like were there other things that you observed that made them feel like they shouldn't be there?
Yeah, I think that they never really Not even about getting involved, but just made a connection with any professors or take anything seriously, if you guys know what I mean. Just just about like academic advising, like they would go, but they didn't really, like Eric talked about, they didn't really get personal with them. They're just like, they took the 6-hour block of classes, like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna take these classes. Instead of mentioning, hey, maybe I wanna take a break, or instead of just getting personal with people, I think they just stayed in line and followed the way that they thought the process was gonna be without getting personal or putting their personal opinions on it. They just were following a lot of rules, and then they figured, you know what, I can go home, go to a community college and do the same thing. So they missed out.
What about you all? Any other of the out of the classroom activities that you felt were pretty influential in making you feel like you belong on campus?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say definitely. So for me, in a major where I was very underrepresented in like all of my classes and kind of like going through like just being on campus, I actively sought out to be involved with people that had similar interests and cultural background as me. So I was heavily involved in our Black Student Union, but then I also tried to manage that with getting involved with civil engineering clubs. And then I also sought out fraternity and Greek life. So that was like a great way for me to kind of maintain those relationships and feel supported, as well as going through like my academic courses.
You look like you were going to say something there.
So thankfully, I feel like I do belong at SJSU, and partly it's because I'm a student success intern at the Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center, a newly opened academic success center directed by Lily Gangay Pinedo. Shout out to Lily. But working there, you know, it's not just pretending to engage with students. We're looking at some of the problems that students face. And I think that's a great opportunity for me as a sociologist. You know, I come to school to develop skills to engage in problems. And when those opportunities aren't there for students, I think they're very discouraged. You know, different students want different things. You know, some want to join FRAD, some want to really look within themselves, but some of us are ready to engage with the outer world. And when those opportunities aren't there in the institutions to, you know, start engaging with the problems that students think they have, instead of just, okay, school, handle yourself, you know, the institutions have problems. And I feel like when I'm allowed to engage in those issues, you know, now I'm really taking part in my education, you know, now I feel like it's mine. And so I think it's important to put students in those problem-solving spaces for them to really feel involved in that this education is theirs, right? So more of this. More students. And so I think that's what would really encourage students to continue with their education. Otherwise, it's not really theirs.
We've talked a lot about, at this point, out of the classroom experiences, but I do want to kind of shift and talk about the academic experience and maybe the role that faculty played throughout your time in college. So I'm wondering if you all have some insight to offer on maybe the more specific academic and classroom experience that you've had during your time.
I've really enjoyed my experience within my classes. At Cal State San Marcos, we have very small classroom sizes. That way the professors really get to know you as a person. And I'm still in touch with a lot of my professors from 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And I really like that they really do care about me and how I'm doing, not just in the classroom, but also outside of it. I've had one professor for my Arabic class who, like, when I was feeling down, she would ask me in front of the whole class, are you okay? Or how are you? That kind of like emotional connection, I don't think you can get anywhere else. So I was really happy with that.
I've also had positive experiences in the classroom. Well, first of all, it's very hard to get classes at Sac State. Like that's the first thing. But once you get into the classroom, I really find that our faculty are engaging and they do reach out to students if you reach out to them. Like if you make an effort, they meet you with that effort. I really do believe that. And I've had a great positive experience in my classrooms.
You threw out a little comment, but like just like let it slide through, and I'm not gonna let it slide, which was it's hard to get classes part. Can anyone relate to that?
Yes.
Do you want to share some of your experiences with that?
Yeah, Sac State, we're just impacted. They're trying the best. They really are. They're trying their hardest for us.
Right.
Yeah, I work in the Academic Advising Center. We're trying our hardest to open up those classes exactly with the Smart Planner initiative. That's really going to help us out.
Can you talk about the Smart Planner? Maybe not everyone in the room is familiar with the Smart Planner initiative.
Okay, so Smart Planner is a fairly new system. Correct me if I'm wrong. Fairly new system. It helps students plan out the 4 years, the whole 4 years of your university. So the idea is to have students complete it as a freshman, plan out all those classes, and when they put those classes into Smart Planner, it lets the university know, like, hey, okay, 100 students put this, that they're going to take this next semester, we need to open up those classrooms. So this is a new thing we're starting at Sac State. We're trying to get students on board with filling it out because it will let those departments know how many of each classes they need to open up. So as soon as this takes off, I think Sac State will solve its problem.
We have something similar at Cal State San Marcos. It's called Degree Planner. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar. Not a lot of students use the Degree Planner, so that kind of makes the administration, the faculty, think, okay, they don't want to be in this class, so therefore we're not going to have this class for next semester. But what they don't realize is that actually we do need that class, but students aren't actually doing anything about it. So there's been a lot of issues with lack of classes and increased student population, and a lot of students have to either pause and wait till the next semester to take a class, which really sucks for people who are graduating soon. So yeah.
How about you, Eric?
May I go back to the original question?
Of course.
For the good engagement with faculty, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, as I mentioned, I've had the opportunity, the blessing really to have some of the faculty listen to me. Again, you know, we're working multiple jobs. I know students who are parents. I know students who are caretakers in their family. But when the faculty does not know this, or they might not be in communication, it's very hard for the student, as their priority is their family, not necessarily the assignment. And so being able to, you know, not choose, but rather space them out accordingly is a great opportunity. Furthermore, you know, during the election of this administration, professors understood that some of us would have been impacted far more than others. You know, we're not, it impacts us differently. And some professors acknowledged that and said, hey, you know, today's not really a good day for some of you. I understand. It's okay if you didn't do your homework. It's okay if you're not ready for the midterm. You know, that's not the priority right now. And I'm actually surprised that did not happen once again recently with the confirmation of someone, you know, women were expected to show up to class. In my sociology class, about 3/4 women, and I think we had a big paper due at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, I don't even want to go to school, you know, but these women are expected to show up to class after this is going on. You know, how do you expect to perform at your top notch when others aren't really considering what might be affecting you or how the greater world is affecting you? And I think that's very important for faculty when they do that, right? They consider that it's not just whatever's going on in the university, but you might be going home to poverty. You might be going home to assault. You might be going home to nothing really because you might be houseless, right? And so that's really important for the faculty to know. And when they do know, I think it's very encouraging to continue on with your education and understand that, you know, it's important. But again, they need to know that we're human too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask another question, but I feel like I can't after that. That was going back to maybe some of those barriers. You've kind of identified some barriers that could exist in being successful academically. Early on in your time, like before you got into your major, were there any moments, you know, one of the things that's part of the student success conversation is like about math courses and introductory math and stuff like that. Did you all have any issues early on in your academic career with any courses that created barriers to getting to the next step for you in your academic plan?
Yes. As soon as you mentioned math, that was definitely, I knew it was for me. So I grew up moving back and forth between Texas and their unified school districts and California. So I had a lot of classes coming from Texas to California schools that weren't necessarily like clear on what they were, or they were hybrid courses that they were trying in Texas but didn't really transfer over to California. So whenever it came time for me to apply for college And to get into civil engineering, I was behind on my math courses. So it was like I had to retake pre-calculus, and I had to take calculus 1, then calculus 2, then calculus 3, then linear and differential equations. So like with that, it prolonged my graduation, and it kind of became like a funnel on like, you can't do these courses until you pass these, but you know, it's kind of difficult to kind of tell where you were. And yes, you can take a test, but the test isn't always, you know, accurate of like what you actually know, as well as retaking courses. I know that I can speak for Cal State Fullerton, like our math department and like our courses are actually very like rigorous. So, you know, even though you have these like 6 courses that you have to take, like each one, you really have to grind out to pass it. So it is a struggle for like degree and completion.
Eric, you mentioned something where you received some advice that had you taken some courses that maybe you shouldn't have. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It was during my transfer process. Thankfully, I think some of us have heard of assist.org. It really does help with the transfer process. And I tend to do my research and just get it checked by counselors themselves rather than them telling me and then going to their word alone. But, you know, they had told me that I needed a race and ethnicity class that I thought I had taken in community college. And then now I'm taking again as an upper division course. Unfortunately, it's the same material. But again, you know, they were requiring me to take a class that I had already taken and that I was going to sort of take again for my major. And there was that sort of large disconnect. I had also planned to minor in business. I think it's important to put disciplines together, right? But there is no communication within some departments. Like, I'm not sure if the sociology department is in communication with the business department, as I believe those two majors would be impactful, you know, just session, and that those opportunities aren't quite there. And I think that's troubling for me, as you know, what I want to learn isn't necessarily there, and so it pushes me away.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this one? So one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is kind of the financial component of making it through college. And you know, we know that that's a pretty big deal, particularly in California, where you know, housing prices are really skyrocketing, and cost of living in general is just getting pretty crazy. So I was wondering if you might be able to share if you all receive financial aid, what types of financial aid you received, and beyond that, if there have still been challenges that you faced, even on top of the fact that maybe you received some financial aid.
Yeah, so I get the whole financial aid package. My estimated family contribution is 0, so I receive the Pell Grant, the state grant, everything. On top of that, I work 2 part-time jobs, and I still have trouble with funding housing and transportation and textbooks and everything. Although financially does cover tuition, it does kind of undermine the other expenses that students have.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I also work 2 jobs. And I also got the full financial aid package. I found for me, it was cheaper to live off campus. So freshman year was really like scraps, guys. And then when I moved off campus, it was a little better for me. But yeah, it's just hard in California.
Yeah, similar situation. I do work part-time, but then I also had to be, you know, savvy with my money and move off campus so that I could save, you know, $8,000 by moving across the street. So it's kind of like, those are the things that you don't really get told or that you don't learn in orientation, but it's more of like you're in charge of your finances. And even though they may give you a full financial aid package, it's like you have to be responsible and kind of penny pinch and make things work like while you're trying to do it. So you do have to still take on a second job or kind of work your schedule, your class schedule around your finances as well.
Can you talk about, a couple of you mentioned working jobs. Can you talk about how that factored into your experience? You know, did you feel like that it was a good thing that you were working, or that it was something that really was just kind of getting in the way? How would you describe how that was influential in your experience?
I feel like for me, it's a mix of both. With the 2 part-time jobs, I feel like I have to be more structured, and I like structure. So I have a planner, and I write down all of my times and what to do. But also on the downside, I don't have time to do homework that often or study as much as I want to. Although like I'm able to still succeed in university, I feel like if I hadn't have to work those jobs, I would be more involved on campus, go to student organizations or club meetings, and just do more things.
I'm taking 18 units right now, and I have 2 jobs. So I'm pretty busy, but at the same time, I do feel like it helps me. For me, at least, being busy helps me get more done because I have to really manage my time. So yeah, but if I didn't work 2 jobs, I find I would be at more sporting events and I would be joining more clubs. But thankfully, one of my jobs is on campus, so I still feel connected to campus. But yeah.
Yeah, I would agree onto that. I definitely think that working kind of takes away from the student experience, but it also gives you a sense of, you know, this is real world and you still have like your struggles with it. But it definitely does take away from, you know, like all of your classes and all the things that you can be doing, but it kind of gives you a little bit more time to procrastinate. But it's definitely, it definitely has been like an interesting situation to have to balance work as well as classes, especially with like students taking so many units and like depending on your major.
Well, and Eric, you work on campus,
Right.
right? Do you have other jobs outside of that one on campus?
Yeah.
And you do too. So you have a campus job and an off-campus job, and then it's same for you.
Yeah.
And did you just work exclusively on campus or off campus?
Yeah, so I worked exclusively on campus, and then now I work off campus.
I just find that interesting, you know, because you know, connecting it to your experience on campus, if you're having to go and do something that maybe is unrelated to the work you're doing, I feel like sometimes that's a privilege, right? To be able to have a job that applies to what you're doing, and not all students have that access. So what I'm going to do is actually turn it over to you all for each of your 5 things. So they were kind of tasked with thinking of the 5 things that they wanted you all to know about student success. And so I'm going to turn it over to you all, and then we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So who'd like to start?
So I'll start. I'm very kind of task oriented, so I have to like write everything down. But my 5 things. So my first thing is that I believe transparency is key with students. I think that coming into academic advising, like you have to kind of understand that not everyone can be funneled through the system. And I also believe that like diversity has multiple, you know, like elements to it. Like it's not necessarily just like your culture or where you're from, but it could also be like your career path. So you definitely kind of have to understand where people are coming from so that you can know how to assist them. It's definitely hard to kind of do that with everyone, but I feel like that should be kind of like the basis on whenever you're trying to help someone, like understanding where they're coming from. And then I also believe that like you have to be well-versed in knowing the resources that are available on campus. It may not necessarily be your responsibility, you know, to show them exactly where it's at or to give them a full rundown, but having like the access and the knowledge of, you know, you can go here for more support, even though that I can't support you in my realm on campus is definitely helpful. And that also includes like clubs and other things that they can do to get involved. And my last thing is that you don't want to lose sight of kind of like where students are. I know that it's hard to kind of balance like your professional life and where everything is kind of like in a professional realm, but then it's also like you're dealing with like struggling college students that have a completely different perspective on life at the current moment that you do. So that's definitely hard coming into meetings and stuff like that as far as like advisement or looking for resources, to feel fully supported.
I want to say, Jacob actually touched on a few things that I was going to say, but I just want to add that making programs mandatory can actually help. Like Farhanda was talking about how they have something similar to Smart Planner, but the students don't do it. I'm busy, right? I take 18 units, I have 2 jobs. So like if I see something like Smart Planner, I might not feel inclined to do it at the moment. I might be like, okay, I have to go to work or I have to do something else. So making things mandatory, I would have to do it. And then in the long run, I wouldn't feel bad about it because it'd help me out. But at the time, I'm thinking about the other million things that I have to do. And also faculty engagement is very important. Like most of the time we only hear about office hours, the syllabus day, right? But I think mentioning it more than once or having a personal relationship with a student or like as much as you can really help the student feel more comfortable. Not every student is like us that will want to talk into a room full of you guys, you know, or like would want to just show up at office hours. So just making that connection with students, just mentioning it everywhere, like once in a while can actually help a student maybe be like, hey, like I should really go. They really want to see me, you know?
Well, Kyra and Jacob definitely touched on most of what I wanted to say, but I think the most important thing for me is just investing and taking initiative in all the resources on campus, especially with like, if you're a first generation college student or you come from a minority background, the EOP has been so wonderful to me, and they've just definitely been a catalyst for my success at university, and just having that at university definitely makes me feel more comfortable and more confident, knowing that, you know, I have people actively rooting for me, which is so great. And yeah.
For sure. I'm not sure if I have 5, but first, I suppose relationships matter. You know, please build relationships, understand that you know, we're very complex people just as you are. To expand on that, identities matter. You know, our student identity certainly matters, but that's not just what we are. You know, we are first generation. Some of us are undocumented. Some of us are transgender. Some of us are queer. Some of us are new to this world. But, you know, that's the most important thing to us. So for you to focus on that for us is critical and essential. Furthermore, we need allies and accomplices. You know, we have big goals. We were here to pursue them. We don't really want anyone to get in our way. So we'd appreciate if we had your support, seriously. And I think a universal education is critical for student success. A lot of students are interested in pursuing that. And so if you help those students out, success will be achieved for many of us. So I think that's what I have.
Jake, it looked like you had something to add.
Oh, I think one last thing that I'd want to add to mine is that representation matters as well. I think definitely when you're trying to support students, it's very important to either have a mentor that can help them or find someone, or like, let's say they have a different cultural background or something like that, like offer support to them in those ways, because, you know, there may be things that they may not feel comfortable bringing up in their certain situation to you, but there might be someone else that can help them, and that can go a really long way.
Can I add one
Yeah,
last
let's
thing?
keep going, yeah.
Sorry. Like I mentioned, many of us have families, and I care for my family as well. Part of the reason that I come to school is for my family. So we're really interested in finding services at the institution that can also help our families as well. If I may give an example, thankfully, SJSU has opened an undocumented resource center, an undocumented Spartan resource center. Not only do they have services for the students, but, you know, they can bring their families, and, you know, their families can succeed sort of together, just looking through the services. And that's something all institutions should have. As, again, I'm not doing this for myself, but for my family, and I know many other students are.
Well, before we get to Q&A, let's give them a round of applause. Really appreciate you all sharing your insights and perspectives. And I'm actually going to turn it to the floor to see if anyone's interested in asking questions. And yes, and we ask that you use the mic. So what I'm going to do is, so that if you're in the very corner back here, you don't have to get up and walk. I'll just bring it to you. Is it on? Okay, great.
Hi. First of all, thank you very much for coming over. That's very brave of you, and I've learned so much from you in just an hour. I work at a part of the university where I kind of work to remove the mechanical hurdles towards degree progress. And one of the things that we've implemented is that a different version of that smart planner about 4 years ago, and it's been mandatory in our institution for all that time. The one thing, though, that is a mystery to me is that, so we get this incredible data from students, all 18,000 of them give us this data, and then we work really hard to use that data to open classes. But the part that I think where it breaks down is when you open a course that has been wanted by the students, and you open sections. The students who said they wanted to take that course end up not taking it. And there are, anecdotally, there are different reasons for that. Like, for instance, you gave some very good reasons as to why you may not be able to take it. You work in 2 jobs, you're very busy. But I also hear sometimes that the time of date is not very desirable for that student. Or they somehow find out that that particular faculty who teaches the course is not very desirable, right? So that, I mean, those factors sometimes I'm being told that are so strong that the student is willing to put it off a semester or a quarter. How has your experience been? I mean, I'm really glad that you're from 4 different institutions, so you may be able to give me 4 different aspects, aspects of this.
Sorry, I have a question as well. Were you able to engage with the students after you collected the data to then ask them, like, hey, this is what we think you're saying, and this is what we're going to do accordingly, but what do you think about what we do so that we can later avoid the problem instead of figuring it out after as it's already implemented and doing that? Were you able to ask students and engage with them in that way?
Good question. No, we haven't done that because it's so difficult. The reasons are almost individual,
Right.
And even though I've tried to do that in different venues, I get individual reasons from students. So it's hard to get one collective answer, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm definitely guilty of not taking a class because of a professor. I think that maybe all college students are. Rate My Professor is my go-to when I'm picking classes. I feel like at the end of the day, we are paying, so that is our discretion. So I want to take a class with someone that I feel like has my best interest, has the best interest of their past students, and it's not going to make it difficult for me to get what I need, which is a pass in the class. So I'm definitely guilty of that, but I think I couldn't tell you why they're not taking the classes other than the professor and the time. I mean, those are great reasons. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm guilty of also putting something on the degree planner and not taking the exact course that I had chosen. And it's because I would say, one, because of the professor, and also because of the time block. There's like a new date that's been implemented at Cal San Marcos. I'm not sure about the other CSUs, where it's like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday class from like 9 to 10. I can't go to drive all the way to school for 1 hour and then drive back home and go to my work. It's impossible, and it's frankly a waste of my time. I would much prefer the Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, where it's like 1 hour and 30 minutes. That's what I would prefer. And I feel like it's not clear on the degree planner or the SMART planner when it says, oh, this course is only going to be available Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or just only Tuesday, Thursday. Students have no way of knowing. So when they go ahead and choose that, and then they realize that this is exactly not what they wanted, they're not going to end up.
Yeah, from my experience, I definitely say the times of the courses really dictate like whether I'm going to take it. I mean, there are times, like most of the times, like you always look up your professor and Rate My Professor. So if there is a way to kind of incorporate that into like the system that you all use as well, it would also help. But I would say the most impactful thing is the times. So if I need to take 2 courses that are mandatory for my major, but they're offered at the same time, then I have to kind of choose, and I have to postpone one to take the other, which is very difficult, especially when things are stacked. So then I kind of have to like come up with my own personal schedule on how I can get things done. And it's not always like as available as I would like it to be.
Sorry, I have an answer as well. It might not be able to answer your whole question, but I think it's important to consider. I've heard of students not take a certain class even though they wanted to take it because of the professor in there and them hearing rumors of them not being nice, or they've assaulted someone before, they've harassed someone before. And the students take that very seriously, but it almost seems like the administrators aren't really digging into, this person. Students are claiming this person assaulted somebody. No one's going to take their class. The issue's not being solved. That's another reason why we're not taking class, because we don't respect those professors, and we don't believe that they have actual things to teach. So that's one of the reasons. amongst many. So I think assault should be addressed. And
So good morning, and thank you so much. I echo the sentiments of others. Appreciate you being here. So my name is Nicole Rodriguez. I'm the Interim Associate Vice President of Student Success at CSU Dominguez Hills. And although student success is in my title, student success is really a responsibility of the entire university and all the stakeholders in it. But I am curious to know what your perspective is and how would you, as from a student perspective, define student success?
I would define student success as a student that student success would be a student that is involved somewhere on campus, whether it be clubs, Greek life, a job, someone that is getting the courses that they need when they need it, so they don't have to hurdle over crashing classes or anything like that. They follow their plan and they get the classes they need when they need it. And just someone who they have excellent advising, major advisors, faculty advisors, academic advisors, whatever type of advisors you have in your campuses. So just being involved, getting in classes, having great advisement, and maybe even career counseling, like having someone be there for you, tell you, maybe you have to take this class, but this class actually can fulfill that requirement and actually help you with the career you want to do as well. So I think being prepared for a career outside of college, having those college memories, being involved, and maybe working on campus or something like that would be my idea of student success, like having the whole package.
Yeah, I would piggyback off of that and say that really becoming well-rounded to pursue the career that you want to pursue is definitely like the ultimate goal of college. So I say that should always remain like in the focus of everyone that's pursuing it. So it's kind of like you want to be well-rounded, to have the social skills and the know-how for, whatever you're studying, but then you also want to have that network and you also want to have the support. So I think that to me is student success.
I agree.
Any questions?
if I may as well. Sorry,
Oh, here
I
goes
was
one.
answer. I was just waiting. Thank you for that question. I think it's important to ask not only us, but the students within your own institutions, right? How you define success. I've learned many skills from my parents, from the histories of my peoples, from my culture. But oftentimes those skills, those attributes aren't really harnessed at the institution, rather they're put aside. So many of us have gone to the institution one way or another, but once we get there, those same skills given to us again by our parents, by our communities, by our histories, aren't really pushed, aren't acknowledged, aren't valued. So I think really asking us, where are you coming from? What have you worked on? What are your successes? How can we build on those alongside what we have to offer here in the institution? Rather than, you're an individualized person, you're here alone, put your head down, go. Again, I'm a family man, I want my family in this. And they have those same skills that I have, right? I want to grow with them too. So I think that's important, know the skills of the students rather other than just academic skills, a way to success.
I'm passing that over.
Good morning. I like to see who I'm talking to.
Hello.
First of all, thank you all for being here. You obviously are going to be very successful in your careers. I teach communication at Cal State Channel Islands, and I'd like you to go into the classroom now, rather than very broad. What are one or two things that faculty do that enhance student success? What are one or two things that we do that may be inhibited that we can do better?
Perfect. Thank you. I think that goes back to what I just mentioned earlier. In the classrooms, oftentimes we're lectured, we're told how to think, rather than, hey, you bring up an interesting topic, you bring up how you've addressed it, you bring up your way, and we'll work through what we know as a class together to supplement it, to flesh it out, to build upon that, right? And that requires for the professor to know the students, know their identity, where they're coming from, their trials and tribulations, rather than just, you're just another student, and pay attention. And so really engaging with the personalities, the histories of your student, rather than just the context of the education, has really improved my education and has motivated me to continue, right? Because it shows to me that not only do they care about me learning what's out there to learn, but learning for myself and for me to contribute my ways to that learning in the future. So something like that.
I have a follow-up question to that I think is like something more like practical, how have they done that? How have the faculty learned about you and done that successfully?
If I may add, one of the most, I guess, key moments for one of the classes that I have taken in university was with my children in the environment class, where the professor on the first day of our lecture, she said, introduce yourself, what you want to be named as, even if it's different than your actual name, and what are your pronouns, and just a few key factors about who you are. Very different from the regular icebreakers, which I know a lot of students dislike, but just the fact that, you know, she asked all of these more personalized and individualized questions really set her apart from all the other professors I've had, where it was just, hello, welcome, this is the syllabus, let's go straight to lecture. So I really like that.
I was very fortunate to have my first ever college class be with our Assistant Vice President of Student Affairs, Beth Lesson, for a freshman seminar. And she asked us the first day ever, I was nervous. I went to Starbucks, so I felt like that's what college kids do. I had my Starbucks and I was super nervous. And she asked us, she was like, hey, like, why did you come here? And just hearing that question, because all of our lives, well, as far as me, my mom was super big on education. Like, she told us college was the only way. We had no other options. So right after high school, we all went to college. And I just knew it was a thing that I had to do, but no one asked me, like, really, like, why I was here. And that really took me aback. So just, like, piggybacking on what they said, like, personal questions. Also, I had a comms class. I'm a communications major. I had a comms class, and it was great. It was a speech writing class, but we actually had the ability to write about or talk about whatever we wanted to talk about. I think having papers are assignments that really force us to look within ourselves, or we get to choose the topic of what we want to learn about or talk about. It helps so much. Like, I have learned so much more when I actually pick the topic that I'm writing about, or when I get to write about something I'm interested in, or find out, research more things that I'm interested in. So I think that's a better way to get involved. And one thing I dislike is when professors don't let us share our own opinions. I had a very, very interesting professor who always spoke about his Republican beliefs, when everyone can believe what we want to believe in, but it was just like, he always were like throwing little jabs at Democrats, like, oh, you guys are soft, and different things like that. And everybody in class was like, this is a comms class, like, where are we at right now? So everyone's just confused. So just being aware of your students' personalities, their wants and needs, and just letting them shine in their own way in class, and letting them talk about what they want to talk about, I think can really help.
Eric,
Yeah.
I see you waiting. Oh, I think Eric's been.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Thank you. I think it's also important to engage outside of the classroom. I'm not sure if you immerse yourself into the student spaces. You know, students are forced to come to you, but do you ever come to them? Thankfully, at our school, at the Chicanx Latinx Student Success Center, our director, Lily Gangay Pinedo, she sort of spearheaded this academic advisor and student dinner, as well as a faculty and student dinner. You know, it's an open dinner space for students and their faculty to engage, talk about not only course things, but really our personal lives, right? So you get to engage with a professor, not in their space where they're, again, the lecturer and the head of knowledge and whatnot. Rather, it's a horizontal space. Let's have some good food. Let's talk about each other. Then take that to the classroom and then better engage. So I think it's important for faculty to also step into the student spaces and immerse themselves into their world, rather than us expecting always to immerse ourselves in yours. So I think that's also important.
Jacob, last word.
I also think it's great whenever professors take the time to kind of customize the course based on the students that are taking it and kind of all of their interests. So I know for me, studying civil engineering, it's a very broad field, and there's a lot of different concentrations and a lot of different things that, you know, students want to learn and that students want to do. So with on the first day, when professors kind of take a poll and say, okay, what is the career path that you want to pursue? So that whenever we go through this material, I can tailor my examples, I can tailor, you know, the way that I'm teaching this to you, so that, you know, you feel that it's relevant, instead of just taking a course and you're kind of like, you know, I don't really know why I'm taking this, or, you know, I don't look forward to taking this, but you kind of get an overview on why it's relevant to you, and that kind of builds that connection and makes you want to go to office hours and pursue, excellence in your course.
Well, with that, I'm sure we could stay here forever. Maybe you can stick around for the second session too and ask more questions at the end. But want to take another opportunity to thank our panelists and give them another round of applause. And with that, we'll wrap it up. And if you want to connect with them before you head to your next session, feel free to do so.